on this particular edition of the show. It is springtime in Montreal. Bell Center, Game 3 coming up tonight between the Capitals and the Montreal Canadiens. Hi, everybody. We are inside Center Bell alongside Tarik, El-Bashir. I'm John Walton. Welcome to this edition of the Rink Report, brought to you by PenFed Credit Union. Great rates for everyone. How about this look, by the way, that we got going on?
Yeah.
This is nice. 22,500 of your closest friends or frenemies, as the case may be, will be in the house tonight as the Capitals looking to go up 3-0 in the series. And the difference between winning and losing, Tarik, is rather slight.
Yeah.
But for the Capitals, it has gone well.
Yeah.
And through the momentum of this best-of-7 series, the Capitals have had enough of it and enough offense to be able to be up 2-0. The first time they have been in this position now since 2019. Tonight, they will try to go up 3-0 and put a stranglehold on this first-round matchup.
You know, John, every game in the playoffs is do or die. They're so important. That said, tonight's game really, to me, feels like it can swing the series one way or another. If the Capitals win it, they go up 3-0, and we all know that only 4 teams in NHL history have come back from 3-0, and nobody in 11 years. It is, like you said, a stranglehold. If you are to open the door for the Habs, who have had very good third periods. I talked to Marty St. Louis a few minutes ago. He acknowledges that big picture, the Capitals have been the better team for 2 games, but he feels like in little pockets, the Habs have controlled territory, and there's some belief in that room. And if they're able to get a win tonight, it could get interesting. So the Caps have everything to play for tonight.
You know, as we sit here at Bell Center and you look around, this is the biggest building in the National Hockey League. They have not had a playoff game like this. Now, yes, you're going to say, well, wait a minute. They went to the Stanley Cup Final in 2021.
Right.
There were no fans.
No, that was empty building.
3,500 fans with all they had.
Yeah.
They have not had this. You got to go all the way back to 2017, the last time that they had this place juiced for a playoff game, and they are ready for it. So the momentum, and Martin St. Louis talking about this. Spencer Carbery has yet to talk this morning. He will in a little while here. But in talking about the atmosphere, even the Montreal head coach was cautious to say, yes, we need to use it to our advantage. Yes, it can help us, but we have to play within ourselves. You can't let it completely overtake you. You've got to be measured in your response. That, for the Capitals, I feel, too, with a couple of guys that hail from Quebec, and everyone on both benches is going to feel the atmosphere of this place. Using that to your advantage tonight, even if you're Washington, that's important.
You know, John, not to open up old wounds or pick at scabs, but the 2010 series still resonates. It's still something I will never forget, not only because of what happened in the series, but the games that were played here in Montreal, in this building. Like you said, 22,500 screaming French Canadians, and they are as passionate a fan base as you are going to find in this league. They sing and chant. It's reminiscent of like an English Premier League soccer game. The players can't hear each other communicating on the ice. Chychrun talked about it yesterday. You know, you have to be louder. You have to be more purposeful with your communication. So Logan Thompson, who's going behind the net to stop the puck, he knows what you're going to do. You can't hide and just steal 10 seconds to get your mind right, because it's just that loud. It's really hard to explain to people who aren't here what it feels like. You know, you talk to football players who play in Seattle, or you talk to basketball players who played at the Garden. This is along those lines where it can scramble your brains if you allow this group of fans to start believing that their team has a chance. How do you combat that? You go out there and you score the first goal, maybe score the first 2, and then you got
Gets a lot quieter after that.
And you get negative energy, right? That's the other thing about this passionate fan base. Now you start hearing some boos and hisses and maybe some other things. Like, the Caps have everything right in front of them. If they can go out there and get a goal early, I think that could really turn this game and this series in their favor.
Here's what we'll call a little bit of breaking news this morning as the Capitals just finishing up their morning skate behind us here. Alexey Protas skated with his teammates for the first time. We have seen this progression over the course of the last 10 days or so where he didn't skate at all. And then he had the blue jersey on. Then he was skating ahead with Kenny McCudden out of the blue jersey. Well, now here, I don't expect that he's going to play in this one tonight, but I think with what we have seen here at Bell Center this morning, Can Alexey Protas play in this series against Montreal at some point? I think the answer to that question is yes.
I agree with you, and Protas is actually on the ice behind us, getting in some extra work with the scratches, which is an indication that he's not going to play tonight. But like you said, he is progressing, and we've seen this progression. It's same with almost any injury. You go from not playing to then being behind the scenes and doing a little bit of working out, and then you start getting on the ice before practice, then the blue jersey, then the normal jersey, and so he's ramping up. I do feel like we are going to see him if this series goes long. I also feel like they're going to be very smart with him because of how important he is to this team. If you go up 3-0 tonight, you may not see him until round 2. If you lose tonight, you might see him in Game 4. Right?
Could be.
One thing I did notice, John, he's wearing shot blockers, those clear plastic booties that go on top of your skates. I had not noticed that in the past, so I double-checked. He is wearing some extra protection on his feet, which makes which makes a lot of sense given the injury that he has. So he's also getting used to that right now. Besides, trying to get his lungs and his conditioning back up, he's probably trying to get used to having that extra protection on his skates.
The goaltending in this series has certainly taken center stage, and that's not just Logan Thompson. Sam Montembeault has been terrific as well. So offense has been tough to come by, but a save percentage now north of 95% for LT through the first 2 games of the series. Really good in both third periods when his team needed him to be. And I think when you look back at the decision, and we didn't know prior to Game 1 whether or not we were going to see him in Game 1 or if it was going to be even further into this round. Not only has he played, he has excelled. Huge moment for the Caps before Game 1 to get him back. Even bigger now that he's among the best goalies so far in these Stanley Cup playoffs.
In a previous life, I was a writer. I could write an entire book on LT's season. This has been just a wild year for him. For the first, let's call it 5/8 of the season, he and Connor Hellebuck were the 2 best goalies in the league. We were talking about Vezina Trophy candidates. Then LT signs the big contract. And I don't know if maybe some of the pressure and expectations of having that big contract got to him. I know that the team also started kind of relaxing and regressing a little bit at the same time. But then his numbers weren't so good. And then he got hurt. And then he goes out of the lineup. We don't see him for a while. And then he starts practicing, and we're like, well, it's a good thing he's going to be back for the playoffs. Probably going to ease him back in there. And then lo and behold, Game 1, he's your starter. And you look at his analytics and just his standard metrics. He's one of the best goalies in these playoffs right now. And when you talk about goaltending, it's not just the volume of saves, but one of the things that Carbery talks about a lot is the timeliness. Making that big stop on a breakaway or making that 2-on-1 save when your team is protecting a 1-goal lead. That's what he's doing for this team. I mean, the volume hasn't been crazy, but it's the fact that in those third periods, when the Capitals are starting to maybe struggle a little bit with the pressure of the moment, and Carbery mentioned that yesterday, and the momentum swings the other way, LT's been one of the best goalies in the league, and he's been there. He's had his boys back, and that's made all the difference for them.
We talk goalies at the other side. One of the things that Martin St. Louis has trotted out in just about every press conference is said the difference between winning and losing is very slight, and nobody knows that better than Sam Montembeault does. He could easily be 2-0 in this series. He certainly has been good enough to get at least 1 win in this series, but he has not, and he has, for the most part, made the big stops to keep it close. You think back to Game 1, that Montreal would have gotten their doors blown off if he wasn't in as good a shape and making the big saves as he was able to. A little bit better for Montreal in Game 2. No doubt better yet here in Game 3 tonight, especially that they're going to have last change. They've got their fans behind them. But for Montembeault, he has been almost, I would say, equal to what Thompson has done. So in this series, one of the things that it really kind of reminds me a little bit, not stylistically of what Dale Hunter had back in 2012, but in a kind of series where everything is, it's going to be a lot of 1-goal games. Like that was an entire series of 1-goal games in Game 7 in the first round against Boston. This feels like that to me a little bit, like getting offense. There's not going to be, in all likelihood, unless something drastically changes, there's no 5-4, 5-2 type games here. This is 2-1. Yeah. This is 3-2 maybe. And if you're on the right side of it, Caps have a chance to be up 3-0, but he is going to be a very difficult target to try and beat tonight again.
John, it shouldn't really come as any surprise. I mean, when you look at this Habs team, since the Four Nations tournament, they are one of the most productive team teams. The Suzuki line has been the most productive line from the Four Nations tournament until the end of the regular season. And Montembeault, his numbers really jumped there in the second half of the season. For the most part for his career, he's like a 900 save percentage guy. He's been more like a 925, 930 guy since that little break there. So the team is playing well around him. He's making big saves. I feel like they're kind of feeding off of one another. And if you look at the Capitals' offense, they've been one of the most offensive teams all year. I believe they finished the regular season second, right, in goals for. They need some other guys to show up. I think four players have goals right now. They need some other guys to bear down and get some goals. Some of that is Montembeault. I think some of that is the Capitals. They can work a little harder to get to the interior, make life a little harder on him. I would love to see them explode for 4 or 5 goals and get some other guys, get their confidence going. But I know that the offense is certainly a point of emphasis for the Capitals going into tonight's game.
One of the things I think when you talk about that, I think you're right when you talk about the Caps do need more goals. But the one thing I do like in this series is you are, despite not getting a lot of goals, getting it from a lot of different places from different guys. In Game 1, Alex Ovechkin, shining bright, of course, comes up with the OT winner. Dylan Strome has been productive in both games. Connor McMichael certainly was deserving of a better fate, I thought, in Game 1. Could have easily had a goal or two. Did have a couple of goals in Game 2. They're getting it from different guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good sign moving forward that, as Spencer Carbery has said quite a bit, as long as the process is there, as long as you're controlling play, as long as you're getting your chances, I think the Caps are getting their chances. And they're getting a lot of guys on the same page. They just haven't been falling because of Montembeault. But they're getting it from different lines. They're getting it from different people. Maybe it's time for Pierre-Luc Dubois to come through tonight or somebody like that. We've seen Anthony Beauvillier do it. So there's been a lot of guys who've been able to. Let's see if you keep up with the process if that doesn't help tonight.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, if you look at the Caps' expected goals over the first 2 games, they're pretty good. Their expected goals is actually higher than their actual goals. So that tells me that if they keep playing the way they're playing, the puck will start dropping for them. That said, games aren't measured in expected goals. They're measured in real goals.
Actual goals.
Actual goals. They have to go out and get a few more of those. And so, I mean, if you want to do the glass half full perspective, and that's usually how I live my life, as you know, John.
Yes. Mr. Positivity, this guy, yes.
What those numbers tell me is there are some guys who are due, right? They are just due. The team is playing better offensively maybe than the numbers would indicate. Hopefully the puck starts dropping because we know in the playoffs especially confidence is everything. I would imagine Connor McMichael now after having a good Game 1 and then 2 goals in Game 2, like he's going to be dialed and the pucks are going to continue to drop for him. They need other guys to start feeling some of that success because this is starting to feel like it could be a long run, and it'd be nice if everyone could start feeling it.
Another guy besides Pierre-Luc Dubois, too, Tom Wilson, a guy who had played very well in his only other game in this season. He had 2 goals in the third period, led the Caps back to a victory here when we were here last in December. Our Katie Florio downstairs catching up with Nic Dowd, who's going to get a lot of D-zone starts and going to get a whole lot of Nick Suzuki tonight in this one against the Habs.
Well, Nick, take away those third periods in these first 2 games, and you guys have done a good job limiting Montreal's zone time, especially against their top line. What's been the key to that success?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is play good offense, right? Like I think when we've been both teams, when both teams have put pressure on the other teams, D-man and make them go back for pucks and play in their own end, both teams have had success. So I think that's what we'll look to do to build on tonight. I think. In order to limit the amount of time you spend in your D zone, a great way to do that is go play in the O zone. So.
And on the flip side of that, how do you halt that momentum in this final period tonight, especially now that they're back in their own building?
Yeah, this is a great place to play, an electric atmosphere, and fans are great here. They love their hockey. So, it's going to be a battle, and I think, we have a veteran team, a team that understands momentum swings, has the ability to adjust to those. I think we did a great job last game in our own building. After they scored, we were able to come out and have a couple good shifts and turn the momentum a little bit. But that's playoffs. It's going to happen. Like they're going to have momentum tonight at times in the games, and so are we. It's important to capitalize on those opportunities. At a very minimum, you want to continue to try and push and keep that momentum as the game goes on. But inevitably, it's going to switch for both sides. You see that throughout every playoff series. It's just how do you manage the downswings. So.
And when it did switch, Logan Thompson was obviously excellent in net, a huge part of these 2 wins. What can you say about his performance so far, especially coming back from that injury and starting fresh again?
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine it was probably challenging last game, going from having limited opportunities on him at the first and second periods to facing a ton of shots and a ton of high-end shots in the third, and he played incredibly well. I mean, I can't say enough. He kept us in that game, made 2 or 3 really, really big game-changing saves. And but, you know, we're all going to be asked to be doing things in these playoffs that are going to be out of our comfort zone. Tomer played great. But I think we need to do a better job of not forcing him to make those types of saves throughout a playoff series.
Even coming in as the opposing team tonight, how excited are you just as a team to come into this Bell Center atmosphere? It's obviously one unlike any other in this league.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite places to play. It's a great city as well. You know, like I said, the atmosphere is going to be off the charts. I think we can use that to our benefit as well. And I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a great atmosphere. So.
And of course, ending on a light note, we need to talk about your good buddy Brandon Duhaime. Of course, the lineup reads eating the paper afterwards. How much does the intensity and grit from a guy like that help during playoffs, both on and off of the ice?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I've been playing with Dewey almost all year, so I'm used to stuff like that, bench antics, locker room antics, but keeps the room light. And he shows up every single night to play, and he brings it, you know, and you know what you're going to get. He's consistent, and he's a playoff player, no question. You know, he's been a very steady player in our lineup, and he does the right things every night, and you know, I think he's a big part of our team. So.
Well, thank you, Nick. Always appreciate your time, and good luck tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you always know Brandon Duhaime's going to bring the intensity. You don't always have to eat things like the lineup card, but it's nice to be able to have that on the line. And, you know, Nick said it there. You know, he's a playoff guy. This is what he does.
That's why they call him Doggy. You never know what he's going to get into, what he's going to eat. I love it. Unfortunately for him, as long as his Caps team keeps winning, he's going to have to keep eating lineup cards.
I don't know what that does to your digestive system, but I think we'll leave that for another day. But as far as the lineup that they're going to face, and the one thing that's a little different, tonight is that in the first 2 games you controlled, if you're Spencer Carbery, what the matchups are. We're going to hear from Spencer here in just a minute. But when you look at Game 3, along with dealing with the crowd and all that you've got going on here at Bell Center, you don't have last change anymore. So Martin St. Louis is going to have a little bit more flexibility in trying to get the matchup he wants to free up Suzuki, get him away from Dowd, get him away from Dubois potentially. How do you see the lines going tonight?
You know, I talked to Marty St. Louis about that just a few minutes ago, and in Washington, you know, that Suzuki line was pretty good. They still got the majority of the territorial advantage there. That said, I feel like the Dubois line, the Chicker and Carlson pair, they were hard matched out against them. Still did a pretty good job. I mean, the goals were just 1-1. That's a win for a line like the Suzuki group that was one of the best from the Four Nations to the end of the regular season. So that was a win tonight, and this is something for fans to watch. Like you said, because St. Louis is going to have last change, he's going to work to get those guys away from the Dubois line, which is going to put probably some of the onus on the Dowd line to go out there. But, you know, there are things inside the game that Carbery can do to try to get the Dubois line out there. You can change a little bit, one player at a time on the fly. You can change on icings and other things to try to get it. One thing St. Louis told me, I asked him directly, I was like, what are you going to do to get them away, that Suzuki line away from the Dubois line? He was like, first of all, I will see how the game plays out those first few shifts and see if Spencer is going to try and chase that matchup. If he's not, you know, I'll just roll lines. So something to watch, because when that Dubois line is out there against the Suzuki line, that's a handful. That's a very big line. That Dubois line is huge. Suzuki line, not very big. Suzuki's not a big guy. Caulfield, not a big guy. Slavkovsky, big guy. But 2 of the 3 on that line, not very big, and they kind of got pushed around a little bit. So definitely a game inside the game to keep an eye on.
So just a quick update on Montreal and their lineup for this one tonight. It was a little bit of a question mark on who we may see. There's been a lot of talk in the Montreal media about getting Arbor Jack guy in potentially for Game 3 to give more of a physical presence in a lineup. If you're Lane Hudson, you're a very talented player, but you're getting your face peeled off the glass because you're getting hit when you're getting pressured. Caden Gooley, same thing. Those guys are having trouble with the physical part of the game because they're getting forced into mistakes, and the Capitals certainly need to continue that. There's some question about Patrick Laine, whether he's able to go. He did not take part in the skate today. He didn't play in the third period. He wasn't quite frankly, he wasn't very good in game 2. Yeah. But he's the only guy that gets power play time in terms of power play goals. 15 of his goals have come all the way to the power play. The 2 for the last 24 going back to the regular season. So there's not a lot of option they have in a power play if Laine doesn't go. But they do have the option of being physical. So it sounds like, according to what Martin St. Louis was saying, they're going to have more guys out for warm-up tonight. Yeah. They truly have some game-time decisions on guys, whether they're 100%. What that tells me, T, is that the physical investment in the series that the Capitals made in the first 2 games at 7th and F are starting to pay off. Yeah. The guys are getting banged up. And through the course of 7 games, those little guys take a beating. Ray Hudson, Cole Caulfield, tremendous players. But you got to have some protection out there. They don't have a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And my French is not really that good. But I'm pretty sure St. Louis said. I'm pretty sure St. Louis said that Laine is going to be a game time decision in his press conference a little while ago. But yeah, I mean, one of the big advantages of this Capitals team is its height and its weight. And they are throwing that weight around. They are throwing it around liberally. And the hope is, if you invest early, you cash the check later in the series. And I do think we're starting to see that a little bit. You know, are there guys in the history of hockey who are smaller and are also playoff performers? I think St. Louis is one of those guys.
He's one of them.
He's absolutely one of them.
No question he was.
That said, I feel like playoffs favor the bigger teams. They favor the heavier teams. They favor the bigger players. And so hopefully this is something that if this run goes long, like we hope it does for the Capitals, they will be able to follow this formula series after series and keep this baby going.
Spencer Carbery meeting with the media a short time ago here at Bell Center, talking about Alexey Protas and more as the Caps getting ready for tonight's Game 3 against the Habs.
He's a possibility for tonight.
Hi, Coach.
Hey.
We all know that Howie can score goals, but how much can it be impressive for you to see him throw like 15 hits in 2 games, and how much it is helpful for you?
Yeah, he's been leading the charge not only offensively with the game that he had in Game 1. Thought he was strong again in Game 2, but from a competitiveness, physicality standpoint, 39 years old, leading the charge, our captain, and he sets the example this time of year. You can tell by his play how much the playoffs and winning mean to him this time of year and where he's at in his career. So it's been impressive, and to be honest with you, we've needed it.
Go ahead, Dan.
Spencer, with Protas, you say it's a possibility for tonight. You guys have won both games in the series so far. I'm just curious how, as a coach, you balance it with a guy who's been so important for you, if he's able to come back, and weighing that with changing a lineup that also has been working.
Yeah, it's something that I've thought about, and I think we have a lot of guys that are deserving to stay in the lineup, so it's difficult decisions for us as a coaching staff, but Pro has had a phenomenal season, and he's a big part of our team, and so, you weigh those scenarios, but, I mean, the second that Pro, if and when he's ready to play, if it's tonight, he'll go into our lineup.
You talked a lot about momentum yesterday. Marty talked a lot about momentum this morning. What goes into the challenge of managing those swings in an atmosphere like you guys are going to face tonight?
Yeah. I think it's just natural. It's in any sport, really, is when you lose momentum, it's hard. It's challenging because there's an opponent that you're up against that feels that momentum and is feeding off that, and lines are feeding off that, and it makes you feel good. You feel like, okay, here we go. And so it gives you a little bit of energy, a little bit of juice. And that's the hard part of winning this time of year. In order to accomplish that and win games and go deep into the playoffs, you have to be able to, when you lose momentum, stop it quickly. And when you get scored on, which inevitably you will, flip the momentum and get back to your game. So it doesn't spiral to 1 goal becomes 2, becomes you just lost momentum for 10 minutes. And that's, I think, what we haven't done a great job of in the third periods of the last two games is just handling that momentum. And there's some X's and O's and tactical stuff that goes into it, as well as knowing when you're leading in a game, the Montreal Canadiens or any opponent that's trailing is going to change their structure a little bit. They're going to be more aggressive. They're going to take more chances. And so you have to understand that as a player and as a team. And then there's a different tactical approach when you're facing more pressure or more risk in those spots.
A lot's going to be made about the environment and the atmosphere in the building tonight, and the assumption that the home team's going to benefit from that. To what extent, if any, do you think your guys could also benefit from it, or have it be a factor at all for you guys?
Well, I don't anticipate us benefiting from it. I think they're going to be we all know and our guys understand the energy, enthusiasm of this building. Our group as a whole on the road this year, I think we've been a pretty good road team and one of the better teams in the league on the road. And being able to manage your game on the road without last change, some little things that go into that, and having success on the road, we've done a pretty good job of throughout this year. So that's what we're going to need to lean on, is our experience in those moments during the regular season, and now ramp that up to another level tonight. But being able to potentially not utilize a matchup in a certain situation, potentially handle extremely aggressive pressure from a home team that's amped up, that wants to get on top of your D. So handling those scenarios are what we've done a pretty good job of all year, and I'm looking forward to the challenge tonight and us responding to that.
No doubt that Alexey Protas will get in the lineup when he's ready, but just wrapping up right behind us here just a few moments ago, he was out to the very end, which is always a very good indication. Tonight is not going to be that night. But the one thing we certainly hear, and the optimism from Spencer Carbery, yes, they're a very good road team. We certainly knew that. They've been that all year. They're going to get Protas back at some point in the series. Don't know if it's going to be tonight, but it's going to be soon. And that, for this team to be able, all the attributes that he has, penalty kill and otherwise, that's big.
John, I mean, he really was the breakout star of this team this year. I mean, yeah, Logan Thompson established himself, and Connor McMichael took another big step. But who could have saw what Alexey Protas did coming? I mean, I sure as heck did.
Not 30 goals.
30 goals. I mean, unreal how good he's been. And it's not like he's a power play merchant. He didn't get 12 of those on the power play. Almost all of them came at even strength. So he's a play driver. He's also another massive human being to put back in the lineup. So, again, I don't feel like they're under a lot of pressure right now. I feel like time is on their side with a 2-0 lead. I mean, I know Carbery, like most coaches, will say when a guy's ready and healthy, he goes back in the lineup. I do feel like they got a little bit of wiggle room with a 2-0 lead. So we'll see when he gets back in there. But when he does, it's going to be big for a team that, you know, the offense has been okay.
Here's hoping the Capitals get that 3-0 lead in the series. Game 3 coming up just after 7 o'clock tonight. You can see the game here on Monumental Sports Network, all the games in the series. A big get well to Craig Laughlin, who did not make the trip, a little bit under the weather. Thinking of you, number 18. We certainly are. We all are here, and we miss you. Alan May going to step in with Joe Beat tonight. Radio call. Kenny and I got you covered on 106.7 The Fan. Thanks for tuning in to this playoff edition of the Rink Report, brought to you by PenFed Credit Union. Great rates for everyone.
Go.